Good afternoon, everyone. This is Camille at COSSA. We are going to go ahead and get started as we have a few more participants joining us. Over the next hour, this is what we'll be covering. We will be reviewing January's headlines related to social and behavioral science. And this month's deep dive topic will be COSSA's 2019 legislative agenda and other resources for advocacy. We also have a homework slide at the end of the presentation about what you can do this month to support social and behavioral science. So I am joined today by my colleague, Julia Milton. Say hi, Julia, so everyone can recognize your voice.
Everybody.
And we will be talking about the many materials that we, along with our other colleagues at COSSA, put together throughout the year. For those of you who are unfamiliar with COSSA, these are our governing members. So anyone who is affiliated with these organizations has access to our members-only materials, along with anyone who is a member of these membership organizations on faculty or affiliated with these colleges and universities or these centers and institutes. Keep in mind throughout our chat this afternoon that you can ask us questions in the chat box. We will also open up the lines at the very end of the presentation for question opportunities. So now we're going to get started on this month's headlines. And headlines for social and behavioral science related to Congress. The partial government shutdown has now stretched into its third week, as I'm sure you all have heard about, leaving many government agencies, including the National Science Foundation, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the Department of the Interior, the Census Bureau, and many other government agencies shuttered for the time being. Unlike many government shutdowns in the past, this is not related to specific funding levels, but rather policy proposals that have created this impasse. And so really once the details of whatever compromise Congress and the president come to with border security, we'll know what spending levels we're dealing with and what spending we'll have for fiscal year 2019. However, there is really no end in sight for this government shutdown.
In the waning hours of the previous Congress in December, the Foundations for Evidence-Based Policymaking Act was passed by both the House and the Senate. So it's now awaiting the president's signature. We're hoping he needs to sign it by January 14th, which is Monday. We haven't heard that he won't sign the bill, and so hopefully we will see something later this week or this weekend that this act will become law. This is legislation that was a sort of down payment on the recommendations of the Commission on Evidence-Based Policymaking, which deliberated over about a year ago and recommended ways the government can better integrate evidence into its decision making. So the act contains recommendations that will enhance federal evidence building activities, enact the Open Government Data Act, which was introduced by Representative Kilmer and Senator Schatz. It reauthorizes CIPSI, which is the Confidential Information Protection and Statistical Efficiency Act, which guides how federal statistical agencies do their jobs. And it also contains a few general provisions that ensure that the clauses in the bill comport with existing laws. So watch over the next few days to see if the president signs the bill.
Moving on to updates from the executive branch, also in the waning hours of the 115th Congress, the last Congress, the Senate confirmed two nominees very important to the social and behavioral sciences. Those include Dr. Kelvin Drogemeyer, who was confirmed to lead the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, and Dr. Stephen Dillingham, who was confirmed to lead the U.S. Census Bureau. Both nominations were welcomed by the scientific community and the statistical community and are considered really non-controversial and respectable choices for these two important roles. And we have covered both of those nominees extensively in our Washington update. Another executive branch update is from the National Science Foundation, who has released another solicitation related to their 10 big ideas for future investment. This solicitation, which is for participation in NSF Ideas Labs, which are intensive workshops focused on finding transdisciplinary solutions to grand challenge problems. This one in particular is part of NSF's support for data-intensive research in science and engineering. Preliminary proposals for participation are being accepted through January 28th.
One more piece of executive branch business that we'd like to flag today is that the General Service Administration's Office of Evaluation Sciences, which is what became of the former White House Social and Behavioral Sciences team, is currently accepting applications for fellowships. The OES helps programs, it conducts evaluations to administer programs more effectively. The fellows embed directly within federal agencies to design and execute evaluations. So there's more information on their website, which the link is on your screen. And you can always see the funding opportunities that we've covered in the COSSA Washington update at the link on your screen as well.
Okay, now moving to some updates from the community. First of all, Golden Goose Award nominations are open. The Golden Goose Awards honor federally funded research that may sound odd, obscure, or serendipitous, but ends up having a major impact on society. Self-nominations are not allowed, but they are accepting nominations on a rolling basis. And recommend people get them submitted by January 21st. Many recipients of the Golden Goose Awards in the past have been social and behavioral scientists, and we always like to see social and behavioral scientists honored as part of this reception every year.
And also of interest to those who have been following the progress that has and hasn't been made related to the federal government's funding of gun violence prevention research. A new national collaborative on gun violence research, which is funded through private philanthropic efforts, has released its first request for proposals. The full details on that are at the website on your screen. They're planning to fund research across 7 broad topics that I won't list, but they include a number that have direct relevance to social and behavioral science research. They're seeking letters of interest by February 4th, and then selected projects will be invited to submit a full proposal. So check their website if that's of interest to you. And last, we just want to flag that early bird registration has opened for our Advocacy Day. You'll hear a lot more about this as we continue with the presentation. But for now, keep an eye on that link and make your plans to register soon. All of this stuff is what we've covered in the COSSA Washington update, so check your inboxes if you want more details about anything that we've just mentioned. And now we're going to see if anyone has any questions on the headlines that we've discussed. There's instructions for asking on your screen, and we will pause a few minutes to see what people have to say.
Also, if you have no questions right now, feel free to write any questions in the chat box throughout the web chat this afternoon. Okay, now we're going to get started on our deep dive. This afternoon, we'll be covering COSSA's 2019 legislative agenda and advocacy resources. Here's a quick snapshot of COSSA's activities over the past year, which we'll be going through to explain how we can use everyone's help in the next year and what resources we have to inform these activities. First, we'll be talking about our legislative agenda that informs our congressional and agency outreach throughout the year. COSSA's legislative agenda is intentionally broad and covers our advocacy across the government and is also flexible enough to address unanticipated developments and concerns. Our 2019 legislative agenda has 4 tenets. 1, to cancel harmful sequestration cuts and protect non-defense discretionary spending. to provide real growth in research funding, including for basic research across all STEM disciplines, to invest in and protect the federal statistical and data enterprise, and to support the use of social science research across federal agencies to ensure policies are based on sound evidence. To first review our first tenet, our support for canceling harmful sequestration cuts and protecting non-defense discretionary spending is first because federal science and statistical programs, among a very wide range of other federal functions, have sustained deep cuts over the last decade in the name of cost saving. This is because federal science programs, like I said, among many other, fall into the category of non-defense discretionary spending. And under the Budget Control Act of 2010, sequestration limited the amount of spending Congress can use for these discretionary programs. And under this law, sequestration will return at the end of fiscal year 2019, which is the end of this September. So we're calling for Congress to cancel these harmful cuts and come up with a response to sequestration that is both sustainable and a balanced approach that also addresses the cuts that these programs have received over the last 8 years. So make sure to keep an eye out for COSSA action alerts related to these efforts to cancel these sequestration efforts. Second, we call for real growth in research funding, including for basic research across all disciplines of science. As a result of the sequestration that I just discussed, many basic science programs have been cut consistently over the past decade. And for the United States to remain globally competitive and support the best science possible, the U.S. scientific enterprise requires stability, predictability, and sustainable funding growth. So Congress needs to invest in basic research to make up for this lost time. And of course, as social and behavioral scientists, it's important for Congress to invest in all disciplines of science.
We also call for the investment in and the protection of the federal statistical and data enterprise. What this is going to translate to in terms of our advocacy is calling for all of the federal statistical agencies to be robustly funded to make sure that the data that they produce is available and accessible to researchers, and that these agencies are insulated from political interference. And that's going to mean things like carefully evaluating proposals for reorganization to ensure that they comport with the missions of the agencies and that they allow them to do their jobs better. We're also going to be looking at things like the citizenship question added to the census, just to make sure that the 2020 census is able to be conducted in the best way that we can. We're also going to follow up on the evidence-based policymaking activities I mentioned with the passage of the Foundations for Evidence-Based Policymaking Act to ensure that as that law is implemented, that the government is continuing to work towards integrating data and evidence into its policymaking.
So finally, related to the idea that it's important to incorporate data and evidence into policymaking, we call for the use of social science research across federal agencies to ensure that policy is based on sound science. And so we call for supporting social science research at agencies that aren't typically associated with social and behavioral science. And so that includes the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, the Department of Education, the Department of Agriculture, the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, and the Office of Evaluation Sciences at the General Services Administration that Julia mentioned earlier. Next, we're going to discuss the original analyses that COSSA produces throughout the year that are useful to COSSA members. One of the policy analyses that we produce every year that you will expect every winter is an analysis of the president's budget request. This is supposed to come out in February, but is often delayed. We expect it to be delayed again this year because of the long government shutdown that we are currently in. And I'm sure you all have heard this many times, but the president's budget request is just that. It's a budget request. It is not law. It is not the actual budget of the federal government for the coming year. And so Even though it isn't law and it's an appropriation proposal, we still make sure to cover it extensively because it is the administration's messaging document related to the agencies that we care about. And so you can see here a few snapshots of what we include every year in our president's budget request analysis. You can see all of the agencies listed in the table. We cover in a narrative form, as you can see here for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, all of these agencies and more in all of our budget analyses. And we can also see, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, we also cover the comparisons to former requests and former enacted appropriations bills, so we can get an accurate sense of what this budget proposal would do to programs important to social and behavioral sciences. And again, not all the agencies we covered are listed here, but all of this can be found on the COSSA website that we will also review later. Another policy analysis we produce throughout the year, and I give the timeline of March through August because that's the normal appropriation season, even though the appropriation season is becoming more and more abnormal as years go on. We provide appropriations analysis of any House bills, any Senate bills, and any conference bills that come out throughout the year for the Agriculture Appropriations Bill, for the Commerce, Justice, and Science Appropriations Bill, and for the Labor, Health and Human Services and Education Appropriations Bill. And so for all of these bills, for all of the versions of them, we will provide an at-a-glance review of the highlights of the bill in comparisons to the former fiscal years. We will also provide a comparison in table format, as you can see, to other proposals for the same fiscal year. So you can see if the House number is better or the Senate number is better. We will also provide a narrative description, as you can see here, for the National Institutes of Health about what the language in the bill, not just the numbers, but what the actual language could mean for the programs important to social and behavioral science in the coming year. So next we'll talk about a very important mechanism and resource for advocacy, and that is Social Science Advocacy Day, which is this year, April 30th and May 1st here in Washington, D.C. And you can use all of those resources that I just talked about during Social Science Advocacy Day. It's our annual spring event, and it's dedicated entirely to social science advocacy, and our efforts will provide the most timely information to our community. And we will provide you with all of the context you need during the kickoff. We'll have a kickoff speaker, and we'll be able to provide you with lots of opportunities to ask us questions before you go to Capitol Hill, and also meet with like-minded social scientists who are excited for advocacy in the coming year. Another important activity that we do is that we provide opportunities for social science advocacy that aren't just on Social Science Advocacy Day. So these are in the form of our COSSA action alerts. And so this is what they'll look like in your email. If you are signed up to receive COSSA member messages, you will receive these action alerts. And so this is just another reason to make sure that everyone in your organization or in your department is signed up for our members' emails. Our member messages, rather, because that way you will get these action alerts. And these are always timely and on a range of relevant topics. And as you can see here, it includes both legislative proposals and executive actions. And so we really run the gamut when it comes to providing opportunities for advocacy throughout the year. We also provide advocacy resources that are helpful throughout the year, but that we update every spring for our annual Advocacy Day. One of those advocacy resources is the Handbook for Social and Behavioral Science Advocacy, which is pictured here. And we can show you how to access it on our website later. And for those of you who are signed up for Social Science Advocacy Day, you will be getting an advanced copy of our 2019 version. And so the handbook includes information about Congress and the policymaking process, and that's both from the legislative side and from the executive side. So it's really a comprehensive snapshot of all of the policy changes that affect social and behavioral science and how we can make sure our voices are heard throughout the process. And it also provides tips and tricks on communicating with Congress and how to be relevant and timely with your advocacy. We also provide talking points. These are last year's talking points. We'll have updated talking points for fiscal year 2020. But we provide talking points both on funding and why it's important to support social and behavioral science from a federal government perspective and other timely issues that emerge. We also produce one-pagers on the appropriations bills important to the social and behavioral sciences. And I listed those appropriations bills earlier, but these one-pagers are really easily digestible and provide examples for why each program in these appropriations bills is important. Like I said, we cover the Commerce Justice Science Bill, the Library Health and Human Services Bill, as well as the Agriculture Bill with these one-pagers that are pre-made for all access for all COSSA members to hand out.
Each year, we also produce a set of one-pagers that highlights the amount of social science research funding that goes to each state. These one-pagers show which departments and agencies in the government the funding dollars come from, as well as which universities in each state is receiving those research dollars. The information is based on federally collected data from the National Science Foundation. You can see on the screen an example from my home state of New Jersey, and you can see what they look like with the total at the top, and then the contributing agencies next, and then on the yellow line, all of the recipient universities. These PDFs also have a back page that has information more generally about why social science funding is important, so we contextualize the numbers. We find that these are really good documents for articulating the local economic impacts of social and behavioral science research funding. We've recently updated these fact sheets with new data, and it's available on our website at the link on your screen. We also produce an interactive dashboard of all of this information that I'll show you in a minute. But before I get to that, using the same data, we produce rankings each year of the colleges and universities based on how much federal social and behavioral science funding they receive. We put these out each year, as I said, and our 2019 rankings are actually coming out on Monday, but you can get a sneak preview at the link above. Everything's posted now. Excuse me. Our 2019 rankings cover nearly 500 institutions, and this also uses an interactive dashboard, and assuming the technology works, I'm about to show you what that looks like. So if you'll just bear with me for a second. This is our dashboard of our rankings. You can see as you scroll down that there's a map sort of showing based on size which universities get the most federal dollars. You can hover over a university, I'm not sure what that one is, but I will look into it, to see how much they get, where they are, what their rank is. You can also, using this filter box, do a search for a university. I'm using my alma mater here, Wesleyan, to see how much money they get. $680,000, they could do better in my opinion. So to demonstrate the other dashboard I mentioned of state data, that's this. You can see the link above. This is more of a heat map for which states are getting the most money, which are getting the least. The darkest colors correspond to the most federal dollars. So if you scroll down a bit further, you can see this is nationwide right now. This is essentially our rankings. This is all of the institutions that are sorted according to how much research funding they receive in the social and behavioral sciences, and these are the agencies that are contributing the most in that order. And you can click on a given state, and it will update these numbers and show you all of the universities in that state and how much money they're getting. All of this information is the most recently available federal data, which is fiscal year 2017. Now, if I can get back to the slideshow.
I just want to give Julia a shout out here because she produces these dashboards and they are very handy and I feel like a resource that not enough COSSA members know about.
Aw, thanks, Camille. All right, so moving on, we've just taken you through a possibly overwhelming number of resources. And so I want to spend a little bit of time telling you about the different ways that we try to get these into your hands because we don't expect you to just know what we're doing. I'm going to start with, I think, maybe the most important one, which is our direct emails to COSSA members. We maintain a members-only email list so that we can share directly with COSSA members critical updates related to breaking news, new programs, new materials, the analyses that Camille mentioned. All of these go to our members first. We also like to circulate opportunities for you to engage with policymakers or other stakeholders and upcoming events. We don't want to clog your inboxes, and so we try to only send these emails out when there's a really noteworthy piece of news to bring to your attention. If you signed up for this webinar and you didn't check the do not contact me box, then you will be added to this list if you weren't already on it. So you should be all set. However, others at your organizations are eligible to receive these emails, but they may not know about them. So if you want to share my email address, which is on the screen, with them, I can add them to our list. Next, I want to talk about our most well-known, I think, offering, the COSSA Washington Update, our newsletter, which is published every other Tuesday. You should already be subscribed to it, but if not, you can check the link on your screen and get on the list. We write about the most important policy developments in Congress, across the federal agencies, and in the stakeholder community affecting social science, and we share other important links and opportunities. While you probably are already getting this in your inbox, we do actually have all of the things that we publish in the newsletter on our website. You may not know that. So you can check the link above and you'll be able to see everything that we've put out in our newsletter. We also keep running lists of notable opportunities to engage, including nominations, funding opportunities, requests for comment, positions, fellowships, and notable reports. All of this is available at the link on your screen on the sidebar, as well as on our resources page, and I'll take you through the website in a little bit so you can see how to find this all on your own. You may also not know that we have every single issue of the COSSA Washington Update going back to 1982, before it was even called the COSSA Washington Update. It was the COSSA Legislative Report back then. It is both entertaining and informative. It's useful for reading up on policy history, looking at the dawn of SDE at the National Science Foundation, or if you're just curious about what was happening in like 1992, you can check it out. So next, I do want to take you through our website because we've given you a ton of information and it's great when they show up in your inbox, but sometimes you want to find something that you know you saw like 6 months ago and you don't know where it is. So to start with, our advocacy tab, you can see in the little arrow, this will take you to policy statements and testimony. If you click the first link under the advocacy tab, this is where we keep all of our policy statements and testimony, as it says. This is sort of all of the formal statements that COSSA as an organization makes. The next down the list is funding and policy updates. This is where we keep a running chart of the most updated information of all of the funding numbers for the agencies that we cover. And if you scroll down on this page, you'll see all of those policy analysis that Camille mentioned earlier. And last under advocacy is our Take Action page, and that's where we keep our latest action alerts, as well as the advocacy handbook and those one-pagers and talking points that Camille was talking about before. So this is your fastest way to find all of that information. Last, if you can't find what you're looking for, check the resources tab. It's sort of our catch-all page, and if you are trying to find something and you don't remember where, this is a good bet to look. So beyond our website, here's a few other things I want to highlight. Hopefully by now you're familiar with Why Social Science and the blog that we have at whysocialscience.com. You may not know, though, that we produce fairly polished looking PDFs to accompany each post on that blog. And so if you happen to have a meeting and need something as a hard copy, you can print these off. They're, front and back of a piece of paper, and you can find each one at the bottom of the post on the Why Social Science website. And we, of course, share information on these webinars and on social media. So if you are looking to keep up with what we're doing, those are two more ways to find out about us. And the last resource that I want to talk to you about is maybe our most underutilized of all, which is our team. As our members, we work for you. And so when you have a question about a weird policy maneuver that you've seen that's happening in Congress, or how a new policy is going to affect the agency that you care about, you can pick up the phone and call us or shoot us an email. We're here. We're also always happy to present at events, conferences. We can talk about COSSA and its work, and to give you, and we also do training on the federal budget process, on advocacy, and how, and what all of that has to do with social science, particularly. We can also, if you have something that you are planning an advocacy strategy for, you can bounce ideas off of us. If you are having a visit and you just want some materials, let us know. We can usually provide something. So just check in with us when you have questions. That's what we're here for. And last, we can connect you with the COSSA community. So if you have an event, or if you have a new report or something that you want to disseminate out to all of the many organizations that are part of the COSSA family, get in touch with us. Or if you need to connect to another organization directly, we have contacts. So that's something that I hope that you'll remember going forward. In order to connect with us, as you see, our information is on the screen in the blue box, and our team is actually expanding. We have a new staff member, Ben, who will be joining us starting tomorrow, and he's on the webinar, so hello, Ben. We are looking forward to him starting, and he's going to provide support for all of the things that we've just gone over today. We're really excited for him to dive in. So that closes out what we wanted to talk about today. And so now we can take your questions. I see I already have one, but if you have others, you can enter the chat box, enter the question in the chat box on the screen. You can hit the raise your hand button, and then we can unmute you. But to start, Kitty Smith-Evans has a question, and she asked can COSSA member organizations contribute materials to the folder that we put together for advocacy visits?
Hi, everybody. This is Wendy at COSSA. I've been lurking quietly in the background. Kitty, this is a really good question, and we get it from time to time. For Advocacy Day, we really want everyone speaking with one voice and having a common message. That being said, we do rely on members occasionally and our partners in the community if they are taking the lead on a certain policy priority. So for example, we use the ad hoc group for medical research and the annual recommendation they put together for the National Institutes of Health funding, and we include that in our materials. So if it's something that is complementary, and it's not something that COSSA has, we've sort of prepared our own materials on, we could certainly consider it. I think the best thing you can do is share it with us. And if it doesn't go in the advocacy folders, I'm sure we could share it through other means. So thanks for the question.
Related to Advocacy Day and related to having a two-way street of communication with our members, we're also always looking for examples of new and exciting research from all disciplines of social science. So anytime during the year, during Advocacy Day season or not, make sure to reach out if something exciting is happening in your field.
Let's see, any other questions? I don't see any at the moment, so this is your last chance before we give you homework. So.
Okay, great. We are going to move on to the exciting homework section, and we have our email addresses again at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions that occur to you after you've closed out the meeting, definitely feel free to shoot us an email.
So your homework is to sign up for Advocacy Day. So I'm glad you asked that question, Kitty, because it brought us right back. Early bird registration goes through the end of the month, so you want to make sure to get that registration done before the price goes up in February. And don't forget that we do offer discounts for students. They can register for $25. So if you know any spirited young graduate or undergraduate students who are interested in learning about advocacy and specifically science advocacy, please share the information on it with them. And the second piece of your homework is, now that you've learned all about the resources that we put out, your job this month is to spread the word at your organization. Forward our emails to your coworkers, tweet at us using the hashtag #WhySocialScience or hashtag COSSA headlines. Chat about the newest Why Social Science post at the water cooler. Just talk us up, because as members, it's your job to help us spread the message within your organizations. We can't reach everybody if we don't know who to reach. And so we really would like you to help get your colleagues excited about COSSA.
And this is Wendy. I just want to underscore that point even more. You may think that others in your organization are already receiving these materials because you are, but our system is an opt-in system. So unless we hear from you through email or through sort of the forms that we've created, colleagues will not be receiving these materials. And so we really do hope that you'll share it, or at the very least set an auto forward for our newsletter every other week, but at the very best, actively encourage people to sign themselves up so they're not relying on you to be the messenger for our materials.
After this webinar, we hope you'll put next month's on your calendar, the second Thursday of each month. And we hope to cover the President's budget request for fiscal year 2020, but we expect that may change. So we'll see what happens. As the President is fond of saying, we will keep you posted. Check your emails. We will also make sure to share a recording of this presentation as well as the slide with all of the links, which may be even more useful to you, so that you can find all of these resources that we talked about today. And we'll also have a link for you to sign up for next month, even though we may not be confident about what we're talking about yet. That all depends on the White House.
We will keep you posted.
If you're ever trying to go back and find a previous month's headlines in the spirit of knowing where to look, check the resources page. We post YouTube videos and links to PowerPoint slides about a month after the previous month's headlines, so you can find them all at that link. So thanks very much, and we will see you in February on Valentine's Day.
Thanks again.
Bye.